This being the template of the technical report. On the left-hand side is the proper chronology of the report, but on the right-hand side we have the sequence of events. And in terms of this particular lesson, having completed the introduction and decided on one purpose statement, the body is what we're looking at, and of course we have to choose a model. The example I will give later is the problem cause solution model, and this lesson is all about justification. We're going to choose one particular argument in that model and we're going to justify it using proper data. The raw data happens here underneath the appendices, but of course the process data, which in this case will be a pivot table and pivot chart, will be used, should I say, in the cause section, because that's the argument we're going to choose, in the cause section of the body of this report. I find some delegates on our courses tend to confuse what's happening in the introduction with what's happening in the body. The argument itself must not be conducted in the introduction. The argument itself is explicated underneath the body, and in this case, this particular example, a description of the causes, the problem should I say, then the causes, and then looking at the solutions. The advantage of that particular model, of course, is that it subsumes the fifth section underneath the fourth. So 4 and 5 are fused together because the solution part of that model then caters for conclusions and or recommendations.
Right, first the disclaimer. We use AI to help us in the creation of our technical reports, but we don't copy-paste. We need to use our own brains for rewording as we read the recommendations. So first, let's look at the task that was given to the group. Come up with a purpose statement for a particular report you have done, are doing, or could well do in the future. And this one group came up with this particular report. This report investigates the effects of iron in the growth of wetlands reeds at, and I'm going to keep the place private. We then decided, well, in terms of Bloom's taxonomy, this is an application, problem solving, and maybe the purpose statement could have included with recommendations for improvement. I then gave them a nice little diagram generated on AI. I called them Iron Man, and the little argument there I'll come back to. Then what I did is we asked AI to come up with a nice little breakdown of the body. Remember, this is not the introduction. Introduction is in another video. This is the breakdown of the body, and usually with the PCS model, as you see here, that's what we decided, and we asked AI just to give us some ideas. Once again, in keeping with the earlier disclaimer, we ask AI for the broad sketches, we should write it ourselves. So the problem is elevated iron levels present in the wetland system. Iron accumulates in sediments and plant tissues, potentially affecting reed growth, physiology, and ecosystem balance. The causes include those 3 causes, and the solutions include those 3 solutions. So the whole task then for the report writer is to unpack that mind map. So if you're in need of this kind of help, this is how we recommend you do it. Just let's look at the actual AI question I posed. All right, I said this is magnificent, thank you. It broke down problem cause solution. I'm considering a technical report that investigates the effect of iron in the growth of wetlands reeds. Considering the mind map of the breakdown of the argument, could you simplify it so it is problem cause solution? And that's what it came up with. So that's basically the kind of question you would ask. We'll include how we unpack, firstly, how we unpack those nodes using the best language practices, keeping the Flesch-Kinsey index within scope, and making sure that it appeals to the reader, given the reader profile. And then secondly, I'm going to choose one small argument, and probably that's the one, the iron accumulation in the biomass over there. That's the argument I'm going to choose. There we go. Iron accumulates in sediments and plant tissues. And we're going to discuss ways in which we may prove that using the tools at our disposal. So we're going to generate data, and then we're going to look at raw data and processed data and the best way to prove that particular point. So that's in keeping with the fourth part of my course, which is indeed to deal with data and methodology. So here's my challenge. I've submitted this breakdown of the argument to the relevant people and they're excited, but they question whether we can prove this particular argument. Obviously, I have to prove all arguments using various tools, but this one has come up, it's been flagged. Can you prove the iron content in the plant tissue or the biomass? Wow. So, fortunately, a friend of mine in the department said, no, we've been measuring that over the past couple of years, and let's have a look here. Here's the raw data. Now remember, this raw data is not going to go into the body of the report. This raw data is going to go under the appendices. We've got 30 records. And you can see the date that this was sampled. You can see the plant species and which zone in the area it was localized at. There's the part of the biomass studied, the age of the plant in months, but here's the expected control. That's what is normal for the plants, but our total hasn't been in fact measured as such. So that's fine, but we can't just say, just look at the raw data. We've got to prove it by a graph. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for double axis, but based on a pivot table. So let's do that. Insert pivot table over here, and it selects the data. Remember, I've kept all the rules of data. No blank rows or columns, definitely no merged cells. And there you've got consistency in data. Everything is nice. So we're going to put it into a new worksheet and watch this. We have the pivot table there, so we need the plant species there, and then underneath that we need the biomass part. So we've got leaf, root and stem for that species, leaf, root and stem for that species, leaf and stem for that species. Now we're going to be looking at the control numbers. They're the control numbers, and then the actual numbers. So what we're going to do now is develop the double axis chart. So we're going to go to recommended charts and go to the line chart. There's my chart. And it is going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the iron content is much higher than what was expected in the various parts of the biomass. Of course, in keeping with my rules of minimalism, I'm going to probably remove all value field buttons on the chart. I'm going to keep the chart title and going to indicate, we'll do that in the next section of the video. And we're going to add the data labels nicely there. There we go. So we can do a proper comparison of the two. Now, it might not be necessary to have the legend. Maybe I just want the indication. Clearly, that's the new measurements and that's the expected measurements. Okay, well done. We now need to put that into the actual report, but that's coming next.